Okay, everyone who's tuning in right now. First, I wanted to bring on a friend, Andy Gardner. Andy,
hello.
welcome.
Hi.
Hey, so we got Andy here.
Hi.
Welcome to the Cure Forever Cure fan page, and I wanted to bring you on first before we introduce our very special guest. And how you doing?
I'm doing well, Carl. How are you?
I'm amazing. I'm amazing.
You're in the same country as us at the moment. You're in France. Brilliant.
Yes. Yeah. It's I'm loving it. It's amazing. So and so just so for the people who aren't aware, who are you? What do you do? What does Themsay?
Okay, very briefly, because we don't want to hold back on the special guest.
No.
I run amongst other things, I run a label called Themsay, and I've been in contact with Dave for a while, and he played me what has become, which we've released recently. It's still in the release process. The tracks that have made up the DNA of DMA, obviously DMA David M. Allen, which is, I mean, he will explain better than myself, but it's a historical snapshot of one of his first sort of production duties in 1981 at Genetic Studios. Martin Russian, the boss of the studio and the Genetic label, basically gave Dave carte blanche to use the new studio gear while Martin was away, and Dave hurriedly, in the space of about 2 weeks, put down these tracks, which are completely fantastic and basically a kind of a precursor to what became the Genetic sound, of which obviously Dave was very much a part of. And that kind of kickstarted his production career into what we all know and love today. So extremely proud to have put this record out. We're still in the middle of the release, and just for a bit of context, we released it for Record Store Day UK back in April, and did an event at Rough Trade East in London. And Dave very kindly invited Phil Thornley along, who obviously, as most of the people on here, I would imagine, know, produced or co-produced Pornography, and went on to be the Cure's bassist through the Top years. Dave and him go back, way back. And the idea is that we're having this chat now, to then you will have the exclusive on the video of the Rough Trade event that was recorded back in April. But I've got a sneaky feeling that what's going to happen with us all tonight will actually be better than that. So
I don't know.
Yeah,
I listened, and the Rough Trade event is there's so much good information, and I'm so excited for other people to hear it.
Well, hopefully I'll let you get on with it, but hopefully Dave's has got a loose tongue tonight, and I think it will be a lot of fun. So welcome everybody. Thank you to whoever's here, and let's have a great time.
All right, going to bring on our very special guest, producer David M. Allen. David.
Oh yeah.
Welcome. How you doing?
I'm trying to loosen my tongue.
Oh, same here. Cheers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Bottoms up.
Bottoms up. Amongst Cure fans, they have this thing that we call a Cure drink. So in a way, this is very appropriate. So nice. Appreciate it.
Why change the habit of a lifetime?
There you go. Oh my goodness. So you're in France as well right now, Dave?
No, I'm in Austria.
Austria. All right. Doing some work out there. Nice. Oh, very cool.
To leave in this shun.
You know, I appreciate you taking the time out and getting set up in a hotel with Wi-Fi to be able to connect with us. I've been going around France.
It's great, Carl. To actually see as well, you and Andy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, I have to say, absolutely amazing thanks, because he's been a tower of strength, no pun intended, no quip intended, and really driven all this through, because like many people, it's very difficult to value yourself. So something that I had kind of maybe long forgotten, or certainly put into a certain place on my intellectual bookshelf, now kind of seen the light of day, and it's kind of a really special thing for me.
Yeah, because this is one of the DNA of DMA. That's like not one of your first albums, but your first album. Am I correct?
It's kind of my first. Well, it's not my first album because I did an album when I was in a band, which Martin Rushing produced. And then musical differences, we went our separate ways, and I had this kind of rough fantasy of being a solo artist, and which Martin encouraged. And then I kind of ended up in my own in the studio because the engineer, the maintenance guy, the engineer left the day I was there, and I was either stuck with the proposition of losing these 10 days in an extremely advanced studio for the times, or knuckling down and kind of learning how to use all the stuff.
Yeah.
So it's my first productions. I mean, I didn't think of them as productions. I was just trying to get something down. It's my first programming really on my own, and I'm singing it and playing it and writing it and producing it and mixing it. Not all of it, but the majority of it. And I guess when Martin came back and heard it, he thought, oh, this guy's got raw talent.
He offered you a job on the spot, right? He was just like,
yeah, kind of.
He was like,
yeah,
it worked for me.
Like, yeah, it's a bit like, I can use you, so I'm gonna.
Nice. I mean, all the equipment and stuff you were learning. I listened to the rough trade thing and some of the stories today, and I want to make sure people listen to that. But like the stories you tell about that, like the equipment you were learning, like he had this, what was it, like a $15,000 or $30,000 synth that
£1,000, whatever that was then, $50,000 just for the Micro Composer 8 and the System 700, which was kind of made in 1977. So it had been out a few years, but it was originally designed to kind of compose classical music on, certainly not to do you know. It was like I say, it's the exercise that you were supposed to kind of use in the Micro Composer 8 was the Brandenburg Concerto. So for someone with no kind of musical background like myself, and no kind of, I can't write music or read music, that was kind of a bit of a stretch, but it kind of wasn't, because it reduced, you know, crotchets, quavers and everything down to kind of numerical values. And well, arithmetic is not special, is it?
And you came into all this working in the studio. Was this following completing a degree in chemistry?
No, I never completed it, although well, my best friend when I was at college was a guy called Paul Carney, and he was doing classics, and I read all of his coursework, but he didn't read any of mine. I've read Plato and Lucretius, but he didn't seem to get into organic chemistry by Morrison and Boyd in quite the same way, understandably. And so consequently, I shouldn't have really been there. I didn't really like it. I was a crap chemist. But one of the advantages, I guess, was that I kind of did end up with a kind of fairly scientific-y type of technological orientated brain. I did a course in COBOL and Fortran while I was there. So when I started to kind of learn how to kind of do stuff in the studio, I didn't really have any kind of techno fear. It was all just, they were actually simpler machines in many ways to the ones that I'd been using at university. Mm-hmm. The best week was the first week where we all learned how to blow glass. It was fabulous. And it was all downhill from there. And you should have seen my retort. You know, I had to like make one of those sort of things with a big bowl that you could boil shit up in. Mine was like Salvador Dali might as well have made it. It was
wow. Salvador Dali, some cool stuff, but it's probably not what you're trying to go for when you're blowing glass like that. Oh my goodness!
The idea was you could make your own equipment. So instead of having to buy stuff off the shelf, you blew your own glass. That was very traditional, probably going back to the alchemists.
Yeah,
so that was kind of the idea.
Oh wow, that's rad. That's rad. And so you finally put out the DNA of DMA after all these years. How does that feel to finally put that out?
And I have to say, my friend JC Carroll, about 10 years ago, when I found this tape in the drawer, you know, a 1/4-inch tape that I'd certainly not listened to for many years. He just said, "Oh wow, you should get that transferred," and which I kind of did, along with some other sort of stuff, and it sounded pretty good. You know, by then I was kind of like, you know, was a couple of decades further down the line, and I thought, oh, yeah, it's not bad. And he was very encouraging and has continuously been a very encouraging presence in my life. And then Andy's discovered it on my kind of Bandcamp site. So without those two people, I would be nothing.
And just to add that JC is a video director extraordinaire and has been doing us some great visuals for the whole DNA project, which are obviously on Dave's YouTube. So go and have a look at them later.
Yes. And yeah, that's one of the things that we're doing here. We're having a nice fun talk, but afterwards, you're going to be able to go to David's channel and, you know, see some amazing visuals put together over the rough trade conversation, and just explore. I mean, check out, you know, the DNA of DMA, listen to that. I gave it a listen today as I was doing yard work, pulling vines off of a cottage. And, you know, it's just, when you, did you just transfer it, or were there any elements that, like, with the way that like production is today, did you come to any points where you're like, oh, maybe I should add a new drum track or add a sound, or did you were able to just transfer it and finally get it out there?
No, I just transferred it, and I was kind of like weirdly surprised. And then I kind of went into the same drawer when JC suggested, oh, well, you know, you should put this out. I then kind of looked at what else I had, and then I discovered like another 3 or 4 things. And then I kind of realized I'd been going down this route from the end of Pinpoint. We'd already started using the MCA for the very last track of that. And I kind of found a few other things, which was enough to kind of make it into a justifiable kind of album release, I guess, including the last track, The Passion of Father Bernard, which I'd kind of discarded really as being just a totally experimental thing. There's no kind of real song there. But that's quite interesting because it is just me fucking about live, you know, in a kind of Eno-esque sort of way. Yeah, so, and then that's kind of where we've got. There's one bona fide kind of Martin Russian produced track, which is the one we did in October 80, which is The Sound of Muzak, which is kind of where we really, I suppose, I always considered it as a bit of a team, with him as being the team leader and me as being the artist. But obviously, the two of us working together, we worked a kind of bit of a formula for how to make this early version of electronic music, which obviously was pre-MIDI, CV and gate, and had quite a lot of complexities to actually doing it rather than doing what most people did. Like, say, Gary Newman, for instance. Yeah, there's electronics, but it's his uncle playing drums. So in a way, it's a kind of conventional thing. Whereas all of this stuff was... Have you asked Arusha to go into horizontal mode?
That was backstage. Yeah.
Can we be that woke? I'm sorry.
It's all right. That was brilliant. Yeah. We have some guests, and you know, one of my sidekicks, and I'm also her sidekick, Arusha. She's got some great questions. People are going to be providing questions in the chat, and some people have already sent questions. But during the pandemic, Arusha and I in New York City were doing these Cure watch parties, and we would come on, and I said, you know what? Let's bring you on board at one of these points. And so yes, and I see she has gone horizontal, which I don't think I'd ever ask any other person, would you go horizontal for me? But she's a good team player. Yeah.
Let me just.
There we go.
There we are.
Let's mess with everyone. We all go sideways, and then everyone's gonna have to turn their devices. That's the ultimate prank in our event. Well, how about I bring her on? I don't know if you guys know who Arusha is. So Arusha Baker is a friend of mine. She's a director. She's working on a project called Push, a CureFan documentary, and she's she's my roommate when I'm in New York City. So let me introduce you. Arusha, are you ready?
Hey, Arusha.
Hello. Oh,
I'm the party.
Hold on.
Wow, you got delay on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into the synth.
Oh, you probably got your speakers are feedback. Do you have any earpieces or any like all right, I'm gonna mute you for a moment while you get sorted. But oh my goodness. So yes, here, I'll bring her back on in just a moment when she's
Sure,
oh,
I
there
love
she goes.
it.
That was quick. That was quick. Well, while she's getting set up, I received questions about snare sounds. And yeah. And I wonder if we should have a miss for that, just because it's covered in the rough trade or whatever, you know. So Thierry Pash says on many Cure albums, but more specifically Disintegration and Wish, the snare sound is very distinctive, and he's asking if you can tell us more about it. But I know you have a very interesting story of snare sounds on, I think it's Close to Me.
Yeah, there's that. With Wish, I think, I mean, you really kind of have to ask Boris about the actual kind of the drums, what type of drums, but I seem to remember it was a Noble and Cooley drum. Noble and Cooley are kind of, at the time, were very posh drums that were kind of handmade, sounded fantastic. And I can't really comment too much about Wish because I didn't mix it. So I'm not sure. You know, mixing's a big thing about making an album. You can make an album, you can ruin it on the mix or make it on the mix. And each album kind of really, I mean, the thing is, there's an evolution from when I started working with The Cure. So if you go back to Love Cats, I didn't even record the drums on that. Phil Thornalley did it. So I have no comment other than it was Andy on drums. And he was a great drummer, and great drummers get great drum sounds out of average kits, you know, because they're great players. The Top, I inherited the drum sound from an engineer called Howard Gray, and I did pretty much everything after the drums and bass. So I can't really comment about that, although I did mix that one. Head on the Door, there's a different drum setup for every song, which was, well, there's a couple of explanations for that. One is that I'm a genius at recording drums, and I was very imaginative. And the other one is that I'd never really recorded drums before, apart from once or twice on my own. And I thought, well, a moving target's difficult to hit. So if I change every song, no one will notice. The Close to Me one is quite interesting because there isn't a snare on it. It's actually a snare next to an upturned next to a tom-tom, which is what Boris was playing. So he was playing the backbeat on a tom-tom, and the snare was rattling adjacent to it. And it's that you're hearing, that you hear as a snare. And then, of course, I gated, which is, you know, like the technical term for, you take the snare, the tom-tom sound, and then only when the tom-tom is played does the gate open and let the snare sound come through. Then I'm liking it. I'm liking it.
Very long delay.
It's a really long delay.
Yeah.
I paid very good money for that, like 30 years ago.
But I thought that was I thought that was fascinating, and that was really just a choice that came from Robert. Like he just said, like I just don't want a snare on it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, brilliant brief. I mean, I didn't have that word then, but you know, a brilliant idea for how to kind of make a track sound. He just said, I want this to sound like somebody is whispering in your ear and a band is playing out. You're in a wardrobe. Yeah. Someone is whispering in your ear and a band is playing outside the wardrobe. You have a, yeah.
I chose, I believe me, I picked a couple different backgrounds, and I was like, you know what, this is right here. It's relevant. Let's just go with that.
It's relevant. If a band come out of there, or you go into Narnia later on tonight.
Wait, guys, wait. Yeah. I got a lion and a band there. Yeah.
Not yet. Yeah. So kind of, it was, you know, and I suppose that's part of one of the things that's kind of a little bit missing with computer music nowadays, or the whole idea that you dial up a snare sound. I mean, there's a malleability to analog recording in that type of way, I mean, you could kind of go, I want the snare to go further away, and you move the mic further away until you find exactly the right kind of place where you think, yeah, that sounds cool. But I mean, that's a fantastic brief from an artist to give an engineer or a producer to kind of get somewhere near to sort of their idea or your idea of their idea.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I mean, I haven't actually spent much time in a wardrobe with someone whispering in my ear with a band playing outside, but we can only dream.
Yeah. So Terry, who asked about the snare sound, his only other question was, he said, who's easier to work with, Dr. Avalanche or Boris Williams, since we're talking about drummers?
Well, Boris was easier.
Yeah.
Boris was much easier because I kind of, he could kind of completely disagree with this, but we kind of forged the relationship together because on Head on the Door, it was the first time he was kind of really in a band in the studio on something kind of major. And it was my first time too. So we were both had not a big preconception of how to go about doing things. So he kind of went with my ideas and I went with his ideas. And because I'd been used to recording drum machines so much, there's a certain sense where I possibly nailed it into the floor with the click. I mean, Blood of Christ, for instance, was maybe 15 minutes of drums, which I edited all the bits that were a little bit out with the click. And when I say a little bit out with the click, they totally weren't really out with the click. But because I was used to this perfection of the drum machine, I couldn't make any transition to a live drummer. So I think one of the things that's interesting about that album is it's got the feel of a kind of drum machine, but it's actually live, which gives it this kind of quasi-electronic thing. You can't quite tell. I mean, it's really tight. That's why you could do things like, you know, you could do Mixed Up, which was all computers. It's all so nailed that you could probably take the entire drum track, run your computer program along with it, and it would all work because he nailed it to the click. And Boris, brilliant at playing to the click, and he could feel and everything because he's had so much experience playing to clicks with the Thompson twins. And I mean, from that point onwards, we formed a really great partnership, I think, in kind of producing the drum sounds, like especially on Disintegration, and maybe even by the time we got to Wish, we were over egging it, trying to go to somewhere which kind of we probably shouldn't have gone because we're already kind of in that maybe over egging the pudding is the English expression. That's not feeling now. I mean, I didn't feel that at the time. I just thought, well, we were, and obviously we were trying to kind of do something that was maybe a step further forward from Disintegration, all these kind of things that you kind of think you've got to do. Anyway, that's kind of drums.
Yeah. That's cool.
He's a very interesting player because he ran with two hi-hats. Because he's a lefty, he has a hi-hat on both sides of the kit. So even though with a conventional drummer or a lot of drummers, you have one hi-hat, so that's always in one position in the stereo. But with Boris, when he wanted to change parts, he had another hi-hat on the other side of the kit, which he was controlling with a remote foot pedal, foot pedal on a piece of bicycle cable, I suppose.
Yeah.
So if it was a two hi-hat part, you could have a hi-hat on the right-hand side of the stereo and on the left-hand side of the stereo, both being played by a guy live. There was kind of a lot of interesting things about the spacing of the kit. But as I say, I'm not a drummer, and Boris would give you more information on that, possibly to the level where you wish you hadn't asked.
Well, hey, I know we're going to, I know there's a lot of Cure fans with Cure questions, but to skip back and forth because your career hasn't been just the Cure. I know Arusha has a question locked and loaded that is related just to the DNA of DMA. Hey, Arusha, are you back? Is that working out okay?
I don't know. Is it?
Yeah,
you're coming through clearly.
Oh man, so it's really hot in New York City right now, and so like the AC's on, but that means that the electricity's off. So that's why I'm in and out of the stream.
Cool. Don't worry.
Wow, I look like a pixelated lady of mystery. Okay, so so Dave, what I wanted to tell you, which I thought was really funny, is so when I listened to the DNA of DMA, I went in blind. I didn't listen to I didn't know anything about the record.
Yeah.
I you know, I mean, of course I had heard about it, but I liked when I listened to a record, I like to not know anything about it.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was listening to it, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. It's kind of got that early '80s vibe, you know. It's kind of like 1981. And then I was like, God, he sounds so young. Is he singing on it? Does he have somebody from Human League singing on it? And then so it's interesting what you just said about the Muzak song, because what was the other one? There was one other track that totally reminded me of Boys Say Go, or whatever that Depeche song is from Speak and Spell.
I don't know, Arusha. The thing is, it's all the same gear.
Right.
You know,
So that's what I'm saying is I didn't know that, right? So I was like listening to it, and then the Muzak song, I was like, okay, this is what I would play if I was DJing, you know what I mean? And what was so cool was I thought I would go right into These Are the Things Dreams Are Made Of, or whatever that song is by Human League. And then guess what? You helped engineer that record.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's like kind of sometimes you feel with this stuff. Are you the are you being wagged by the technology? Because when you say it's got a fingerprint of technology in there, hasn't it?
Yeah, it totally does, and I loved listening to it.
Maybe it's the same thing as if somebody's playing through a Marshall amp and they've got a Gibson guitar and it's a 330 and all the rest of it, and there are 5 people that all play that, it's all going to have a kind of similar thing. In fact, for a period of time up to the kind of 90s when it got very blurry, I could kind of go, do you know what, that record, that guy's playing a Strat or that guy's playing a Gibson. You can ident it that much. So maybe it's that type of fingerprint timbre thing, which you're getting off of all those old synths. And I guess we're talking about a very small range of equipment in comparison to nowadays.
Well, that's what the question that comes out of it is like, for people that are not music engineers, like, for example, there's a big contingency if we're talking about the Cure, because we're on CureFan, whatever, the Cure forever. People can CureFanDoc fuckfest. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Horizontal, I don't even know. But a lot of people will say, oh my God, I love Robert Smith. And some people say, what is that guitar sound? Like, why does it sound so good? And why does that guitar sound so different on this record versus that record? And non-music people don't know. We just don't know. I mean, I'm like half a music person, but I don't know in the engineering sound. Like, to me, when I think about that Human League record that I'm talking about, in some ways it sounds very produced and polished, but when we're talking about that Roland sound, that equipment, that is like a very 1981 sound.
It is,
very Speak and Spell. And so when I read that, you were basically unboxing this Roland material, I guess I wanted to ask you, when you were messing around with it, were you like, rad, this is awesome, or like, what is this silliness? Or
it was awesome, because like one of the things that was a big thing in punk was that you didn't really have to be a great musician, as in like kind of technically being able to play guitar very well, in order to kind of do stuff. That also doesn't mean to say that in other words, you had a right to do, you didn't have a right for anyone to like it. So people would go, you're shit, but you had a right to do. And to me, kind of doing all that stuff on synths and being able to program was like the ultimate in that kind of punk dream, because, you could putting a few numbers in, well, a lot of numbers, but you could, by doing that, you could produce something that was super tight. It would play over and over again. So you got a few chances to get the sound right. And it does have a kind of a timbre of its own. And of course, the link between it all, I suppose, the reason why the sound is the same, there were very few echo machines. I mean, Genetic had it had a Clark Technic digital, I don't even know if it was digital reverb, and an oil-filled plate. So it had 2 types of echo.
Wait. What's an oil-filled plate?
It's a box full of oil with a microphone down one end and a speaker down the other, and you put the sound into the speaker, and it travels through all this corridor. Takes ages, and it simulates a big hall, and there's a microphone at the other end which picks up the signal. So that's how all the Beatles did stuff. They had these oil-filled plates, and the oil is in there to make the sound go slower because it's thicker.
Stop it. That's amazing. And I'm still not comprehending it.
Yeah, go on.
But
Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, very, very quickly. What I think is really interesting is that we've had a few conversations with Dave and other people the invention of pop music after the Second World War, whatever, the 50s. There was this kind of arms race for producers and studios to get the next big, expensive lot of equipment. And the thing that really marks the early 80s and the DNA of DMA and the first Human League and Depeche, all the things you were talking about, Arusha, is the fact that it's a very thin window, a very narrow window, because about 83, 84, 85, these really expensive sampling machines like the Synclavier and the Fairlight came in, and like all the Martin Rushents and the Trevor Horns and all the big producers went out and bought them. And this kind of cutting edge Roland material that was kind of like, made there by the Human League, what it is, and the DNA of DMA really used for about 2, max 3 years.
Yeah.
What really makes it historically significant, because afterwards, for $100,000, you could sample your water, your water closet, your toilet. Depeche Mode spent hours on building sites with hammers and what have you. And this was like this very new synth technology, which was actually brilliant and is still used today by a lot of people, but it kind of went out of fashion very quickly when the people started buying even more expensive stuff.
And MIDI came in 83, which in a way kind of flattened everything out, because you could join a Korg, a Roland, an Oberheim, and you could mix all those sounds together. So instead of having your string machine being one string machine like a Selena or like a Korg or etc., you could have all 3. Now, of course, when you do that, you start losing the identity of each particular manufacturer's idea of what a string machine sounds like. So it's kind of like again, quite a narrow window of time, as Andy said. And I think it's true to say, and my point I was coming to is that whether you were Depeche Mode or Soft Cell or the Human League or me when I was doing the DNA, you had like a very, very limited range of equipment. 1 delay line, couple of echoes, SM58, a big synthesizer, and drum pads. Maybe that was it. And you all had to make your music out of the same unit of things. A bit like when we listen to old 50s rock and roll, it kind of all sounds the same, doesn't it? I mean, obviously.
Well, but what's fascinating about what you're saying, I think, is so like I live here in Brooklyn, and this whole synthwave thing, there's a huge resurgence of what they call synthwave, and those records around 81, 82 are what everybody's super excited about, and they sort of model themselves after that sound. For me, as an old fart, in my 50s, I'm like, but it doesn't sound the same, and but I don't know why. And to me, when you just said something about MIDI and flat, I mean, I love a lot of the bands that are out there now, and I love seeing, people mixing old songs with new, but there is a flatness, and I don't know what that is. So, I mean, I have even more questions, but it's just fascinating that when you talk about this particular kind of sound in a particular window of time, because that timestamp has influenced so many people, just like punk did when it first started, and just like whatever the Batcave did in 19 whatever. But
yeah.
Just to segue into the drum machines and stuff. So my friend Ian had a question that kind of segues in. This is Ian. I don't know if you can see him or not.
We'll post him on Facebook.
Okay, great. So Ian wanted to ask about the Sisters of Mercy, because you did First, Last, and Always, which I love, and he thinks is a piece of shit, and he would be so mad if I said that. Well, because he doesn't like the rough sound, and I like rough. I don't like polished stuff. Like, I think you worked on Vision Thing too, right?
I didn't know.
Or no? Oh, you didn't? Okay, I made that up. But what he wanted to ask was so Homie uses a drum machine, and for you as an engineer and producer, is it more fun to work with somebody that's like Boris, who's doing the live drums, versus a drum machine, or does it matter?
Well, it's more fun working with a drummer, that's for sure. But drum machines are really cool. The Sisters, it was a bit difficult because we switched over halfway through from a DMX1 to a DMX2. The DMX2 wouldn't follow a DMX1 code very well. So some kind of stranger, we had to do it twice because, you know, we had to guide drums down for that. And then when we got the DMX2, having got rid of the DMX1 due to kind of Andrew Eldridge's superior intellect, well, why keep the old one when you got the new one until actually you then find the new one won't follow the old one? So we had to redo that song. And yeah, it does sound rough, but, you know, it's a seminal album. So it's a bit like kind of, you know, if you want Jim Steinman album, go get a Jim Steinman album. I mean, that's how I feel. I love it. So I love it. I mean, I love Pretty Hate Machine by Nine Inch Nails, you know. I know it's really but and yeah, you know, there's a kind of roughness to it, and yeah,
it's not that rough.
I ain't Jim Steinman.
Well, I think, you know, Ian's question was, you know, how is it like? What are the challenges of working with a drum machine versus?
Well, it's not as challenging as working with a singer that really kind of will not work with you.
Okay, Carl, can I ask my third question? Can I ask my third question?
Third question.
Yeah, hit it. Go for it.
So Dave, I wanted to ask about the live. So with the Cure, so you worked on Concert, right?
Yeah.
And you worked on the Cure in Orange.
Yeah.
And then did you work on Show as well?
No.
Okay. So between the tape, the concert tape, and the Cure in Orange, I guess I'm wondering, like, a teaching lesson is like, as a engineer and producer, at what stage do you come in, like a director, producer?
Go back to Concert. I recorded I recorded 6 concerts on the Top Tour for that. When I say I recorded them, we used the Manor Mobile, and the 2 guys who ran the Manor Mobile knew a hell of a lot more about live recording than I did. So I could actually say that I just kind of sat on the couch and just went, chaps, please make it okay. Because the main thing with live recording in those days was you had to get everything onto tape so that later on you could kind of like rescue it or do whatever you do. 99% of live albums are heavily rescued. The best example of it is the Tony Visconti Thin Lizzy one, where it's so rescued that it's pretty much a studio album. And in fact, there's recently, or like a year ago, the unrescued version came out, and Tony was able to kind of go, you know what, just wasn't that bad. Now with Concert, we didn't actually have time to do any repairs. I basically picked the best performances that were to comprise that off of the tape, and we had 2 or 3 days to mix it. So nothing was repaired on it, which is what gives it that kind of garage sound. It is actually a live recording that was the best was made of, and most live recordings are kind of quite honed up. Now, if we moved on to Cure in Orange, I'm afraid it was filmed at the wrong speed.
Right.
Now, that's not my gig. That wasn't my gig, because pop videos were 25 frame and film is 24 frame. Now, it doesn't really matter nowadays because you can make these conversions, but if you film something at 25 frame, you cannot convert it to 24 frame. So the cinema release of the Cure in Orange all played a little bit slow, like 1 frame every second slower. Now, for the audio, I had to run the audio through, it's a Dolby matrix and it's really complicated, but basically I had to run all the audio, pitch shift it up through 3 stereo Publison harmonizer machines to put it back into concert, but the tempo was still slower. So the cinema release was really dogged with a lot of kind of problems because it all kind of sounded a bit sluggish, especially to me and Robert. And we never actually found out until we went to Studio 7 at Pinewood, which is the James Bond preview theatre, and it all kind of looked a bit wanky and slow. And at that point, that's when we found out it had been filmed at the wrong speed for cinema. Now, that doesn't affect the video. And in fact, I think Chris Parry went in and remixed all of the video again, because obviously he didn't then have to kind of do the pitch shifting and all that rubbish. So that whole project was a bit compromised. And then Tim went missing. Chris went off on his boat. And Robert was nowhere to be seen. So I kind of did it with a big can in my hand.
Oh, wow.
But it was really cool for me because I worked with Kubrick sound dubbing. And I'm a bit of a Kubrick nut, so I kind of found out all about like how Kubrick dubbed his films and how I was totally on the money with it and how everything was exact. I felt really sorry for him because there he was, like plunging this kind of like video, this audio to picture that was at the wrong kind of speed and all this sort of stuff. So
when you say you worked with Kubrick, can you elaborate on that?
With the guy that had dubbed all of Kubrick's films. He was the sound engineer
okay.
At Shepperton that dubbed all of his films, or all of his kind of English films, because Kubrick never left England to do his films. And then Picture Show, I don't know. Like I had nothing to do with that.
Do you think, Dave, that's why Cure in Orange has never been released on DVD or Blu-rays because of these technical problems?
Is it not? I don't know. I thought there was a separate video DVD mix. Maybe they just never got around to it.
No, there's bootlegs, but there's never been an official release.
Well, it should be, because it's like 25 frame, which is perfect for video, and you can make all those conversions nowadays because you can get a computer which will analyze it out and kind of smooth out all the problems. You can do it, but in those days you couldn't. In fact, the only option was to telesyn it. In other words, show it again on a screen and refilm it on a screen, and no one kind of really wanted to do. Well, I don't know. I didn't know enough about film then to. I may have even suggested it, but that's the story of the Cure in Orange. Other than that, it was a fantastic night, and actually, that was the biggest studio I've ever worked in because that was repaired. They did the concert. And then they booked the auditorium in Orange for the second day. And on the second day, they did a reshoot starting at 7 o'clock in the evening, but without any audience. And during the day, much to everybody's horror, I suggested that we go through all the concert, and any mistakes, we try and overdub them, which was, frankly, a bit of a nightmare because you had the band on stage in the south of France, and I'd be in the mobile 100 yards back, and I'd go, well, there's a little bass mistake around, 3 minutes 30. I'll go back to the truck, Simon, wind the tape, we'll be about 10 bars before, and I'll drop you in and out, which is like a technical term on tape, to go into record and then come out of record. So, I'd go back to the truck, press play, desperately hope that he was playing along, press plonk in record, patch up the little tiny mistake, then drop out, hopefully leaving no trace. We did spend some time trying to patch up the drums, and I think I made 2 or 3 attempts, and I thought, you're going to fuck this up in a minute, and actually wiped the entire drum track for a second and a half. But we actually went through the whole kind of thing and checked it all out live on the second day. They had a break, and then they had to kind of do the whole concert again with no audience, which is why in the opening shot there's no crowd there.
I was gonna bring that up. I was gonna bring up that as watching The Cure in Orange, I always laugh when I see. I love the pit shot of the kids. You know, first of all, they're all wearing white shirts, which I find fascinating. I'm like, what is it with 1986 in France? Everyone's wearing white, even The Cure are wearing white. Everybody's wearing their white shirts, and so they're in this pit, like this supercharged dance pit, and you can't hear anybody.
You don't put audience mics anywhere near the audience. They steal them.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, you never. That's why all the audience on live albums and films is fake. You can never. You know, you can't put audience mics down in the front of the stage. Can you? You can't. What would you do?
Can't you get them with a boom? Keep it at a safe difference and a boom mic on them? I don't know.
I mean, now things are different, right? Because I've worked with crowds, and if you're in a movie, I guess in like a real, yeah.
I'm 10 foot above their head, and only Mission fans can never get them because they stand on
right.
shoulders. Yeah, of course, there's ways of doing that now. Yeah, but there wasn't then, and I did quite a few. Well, I didn't do quite a few. I did some live recordings, and I'd be going, "Can we put the mics here?" And the guys on the sound people, the other sound people, I should say, will go, "No way, they'll all be gone at the end of the gig. You mental."
Good point.
Yeah. A lot of fans in the chat are expressing their admiration for and appreciation for An Orange. Arusha and I, we have a friend that we watched An Orange with maybe sometime during the pandemic, and he pointed out, he goes, "Hey, did you guys ever notice this?" And we're like, "What?" And it's like, "Okay, watch here. You see how Robert's got one guitar? Watch in the next cut, and then all of a sudden he's got a different guitar in the middle of one song, and it switches, and then it switches to one guitar and then back to the other guitar." And I was just like, "Oh, just another interesting."
Yeah, because that's before we knew that it was shot 3 times or whatever.
Twice.
Yeah. Twice.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And with so talking about how In Orange, yeah, it'd be great if they restored it. That'd be amazing. With restoration of things, I know in the past, I presume you were involved when they did like the remasters of like Disintegration and albums like pretty much up to that date. No.
Nope.
No. Okay.
Nope.
I was wondering about that. All right.
No, I've never been.
Dave, I think Discogs is lying about you because there's like you're credited for show and you're credited for all this stuff, but whatever. I don't know.
We're talking to the big hand, Arusha.
Shush, Arusha. Shush. I'm taking all those credits.
All right.
Well, I didn't know that. I haven't looked at my Discogs for ages, and there's like loads and loads of pages on it. So, I'm not that vain. Or I don't know what the term is. I mean, I might have even done something on them. I don't know. I really can't say, because this is one of the problems about doing these live things is that if I had known that question was going to come up, I would have actually done my own research and gone, "Oh shit, yeah, you did do that." For instance, "Boys Don't Cry," I revocaled it, but I have no memory whatsoever of revocaling that. I remember mixing it. I don't remember what studio it was in. I remember doing Pillbox Tales, which everybody thinks is about drugs, but of course is about Lol's, first sexual experience in a pillbox. But I really don't.
Woo-hoo.
Well, I assumed it was about taking acid, but it isn't. In England, when they built like gun emplacements, because they looked like little hats, like a pillbox hat. They were called pillboxes, and they were all abandoned at the end of the Second World War. So they were perfect places to go and have an al fresco shag, and which is an English word for having sex, and
going horizontal.
So one of Lol's tales. Sorry, Lol, but one of Lol's tales about having sex in one of these abandoned World War II pillboxes. But of course, it's perfect for the psychedelic kind of angle of The Cure. But that's kind of all I remember about it. And it's only recently when somebody sort of said, "Oh, you revocaled Boys Don't Cry." And I kind of went, "Well, did I?" And then I've kind of realised, because I was at my friend Reto's in Switzerland a few days ago, and I was signing up all of his Cure records to my dear friend Reto. Love you, man. And he had an original copy of Boys Don't Cry, which said re-vocal. And I thought, well, shit, I must have done that. I must have remixed it, tightened up the drums, re-vocaled it with Robert. And that's the one that everybody kind of plays, I guess. But, you know, I don't actually, to be honest, remember doing anything about that at all, other than I kind of now know that I did it. I kind of knew I'd always remixed it, but I didn't really realize that that Robert had actually re-sung it, because shit, he can't remember detail like that.
Just to be really anal and attention to detail, you are quite correctly credited on show because you produced tape in the Wish sessions.
Ah,
There you go. Yeah,
Oh,
the opening tape. It was done. You did it on the Wish sessions.
Oh,
there you go.
Right.
That's why.
Oh, that's why. So I'm on that too. All right.
Yeah, you are.
You've done a lot of work, obviously. And is there anything like stands out? Like, do you have any like favorite moments or favorite projects you've worked on, like that where you had a good time, or just something that, or maybe you didn't have a good time, but you were just really proud of the outcome?
Well, I'm really proud of the sisters.
Yeah.
First, last, and always.
That's fucking hard.
It's a
Man, you have no idea. No, I mean, without Wayne was a genius. Craig is great. Gary was brilliant. Dr. Avalanche was great. Andrew was great. But it was a massive, massive fight. Not a fight, but it was just really, really hard to do. He's very hard to get to poo. No, it was really, honestly, really hard. I didn't know very much about recording then. I was really at the start. I was shitting it because this was the first thing I'd ever done, really kind of any note, where I didn't have a kind of an envelope around me. When I did the Cure stuff, I had Chris Parry, who had, I was producing with him. Me and Chris got on really, really well together, and kind of it was cool. He was a little bit older. With the sisters, I was on my own, and I could just see it all going down in flames. Andrew got ill. He didn't write the lyrics. It was all these kind of things. Well, I mean, and I understand that writing lyrics is really difficult. It is really difficult. And he's a great artist in his kind of own funny way. He's a great artist, but it was really, really difficult holding that together. And there were many moments where it just could have fallen. I mean, just as an example, like Wayne did Black Planet and Marianne. No words on it, but like he did those backing tracks. And Andrew sort of went, oh no, these are shit. Doing it in the afternoon. Then in the evening, in the witching hour, basically till 4 a.m, we put vocals down and he knocked out some words, and man, they're great, those 2 tracks. And he could really do it, but it was extremely difficult to do. Andrew is extremely difficult to negotiate with or to get anything to do. And unfortunately, he is one of those people who he believes he's very intelligent. And intelligence is of no real use when you're doing music, because you could be dumb as shit and be a musical genius.
Right. And you have to collaborate too, right?
I'm just saying, I mean, maybe I was really difficult, and I probably was, but it was just really difficult to do. I'm a collaborative person, and I think Andrew kind of like thought it was a bit like an army, we all march and I'm the general, and, I don't need this person, I don't need that person, and I can just replace people like this and that. And it was just really difficult, and he kind of got sick, and then there was 3 months delay, and then and basically I kind of consider that I really held that whole thing together all the way through to the end with whatever compromises I had to do. And I'm really proud of it, because that's my kind of baptism of fire. And really, I should be kind of more proud of something like Disintegration. But, that was the bit where I grew a pair of balls.
That's great. I'm going to make sure I tell Ian that. And we're going to fight about it, about how great that record is. I love that record.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What about Dave? You're reminding me of, I have scenario built about Mark Burgess from the Chameleons, because adore his work. What about Strange Times? Was that a similar experience, or was that total opposite?
Well,
Uh-oh.
I love that band. I love the Chameleons. I mean, that particular iteration of the Chameleons. Well, I mean, it's the same thing. It's Dave, Reg, Mark's brilliant, Dave's brilliant, Reg is just fucking hell. He's on another level of guitar playing. John Lever, brilliant drummer. Geffen pulled the budget after we spent too long doing the first 4 tracks, Paradiso and stuff. So we didn't have very much time to do it. I did it with Mark Saunders. Mark Saunders was the engineer of Strange Times. So we had quite a long association because obviously he mixed Wish. He did Never Enough. And he also did the 12-inch mixes of from Disintegration. But this was because me and Mark had worked together. And I think if you want to hear a precursor to Disintegration, Strange Times is it.
Good
Yeah,
point.
I mean,
Good point.
very good point. Kids, are you listening? Go
Well,
out and listen to the Chameleons, because
The
it's true.
Chameleons are going to go streaming tonight.
No, but the only kind of, I suppose, negative thing, if you think it's negative, I don't really think the Chameleons wrote singles. And I know lots of people think that's shit, and lots of people think that, and it's great, songs are great, but and they were unstable as in constantly arguing, constantly fighting, very difficult target to hit, had 3 different record companies, and you need consistency. And one of the things the Cure had, consistency wise, they had Chris Parry from the start all the way through to 2000, and that consistency of vision and management is all this invisible stuff that goes on behind bands that keeps the glue together. I mean, without Chris, would the Cure have carried on after Pornography?
Right.
You know, and you need that envelope around you. You need the people around you who love you and are going to keep you together, and they value you. That's my trip on it. It's not all about the bands. It's not all about the producers. It's about the whole kind of peripheral.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another fantastic point. That's like a learning curve for people who, you know, who love a band. And if you know about music, you know those things, but sometimes you don't know why you love a song so much, why you love a band so much. Like Swamp Thing's on Strange Times, right, by the Chameleons. I mean, that song, and I would say the way it's produced and engineered, like that is a song, I don't understand what you did on it. I don't understand why it's so fucking powerful.
Mark Saunders
but
got
it's so good.
Drum sound on that.
Horizontal.
The kick sound on Swamp Thing's really great. But we didn't actually, because Geffen wouldn't put the first Paradiso and Tears, wouldn't put all of those on the album. We didn't have enough material. So that whole song started with, "Have you got another song, boys?" And Reg said, "I've got a riff." And everything's... So that's kind of why it's kind of strangely lumpy. It's not really a kind of song because it's a bit like knocked together in the studio. And it's kind of, you know, John's a great drummer. Mark got an amazing bass drum sound. I mean, obviously you can just sort of stick that in your machine now and get that type of sticky bass drum sound. But he did an amazing engineering job. And it was great for me because I could just flounce around smoking joints, wearing a lady's dress and being funny, you know. So, you know.
As one does.
To do, yes. Anyway, I love that band.
And Andy, what's that you have there? What's that little prop?
Toy. It's a cat toy.
Okay, horizontal. Here we go. Who's next? What?
I thought it was a writing prop.
Woo!
Well, talking about sounds and stuff like that, you know, I've seen some questions about what your role was as a producer. Like, not you know, we have people in the audience who are professional musicians. They understand, you know, producer, engineer, but not everyone knows the difference. And what was your role in the creative process as a producer with The Cure?
Well, it's really, again, it's not one thing, is it? Because when I did Love Cats, I was the mixer. And also, like, I'd completely forgotten I did trumpet on it as well. I recorded trumpet from this guy called Luke something or another. I can't remember his second name. It's a shame. But somebody had to remind me of that.
Phil Thornley, as it happens.
Yeah. Phil Thornley. Yeah, it's really good kind of meeting people that you've kind of vaguely worked with because they fill in all the gaps. So if you kind of take that, then the next album is a different equation at all. The top, each album's kind of different, and each one had a different role. One of the things that's for sure is that when I first started working with Robert, he kind of knew more about making albums than I did. So when we're talking about co-production, we're really talking about co-production. And I kind of think that my production input into that was more from the point of view that I kind of understood what he was going on about. I think for a very long period of time, we had an understanding or a chemistry that was largely unspoken. I've got a very vicious sense of humor, so has he. We got on. I find him funny, and I really liked him, and I still do really like him. He was like very sweet to me after my son died, and you know, that sort of thing. It doesn't last forever, and I think possibly like over the last sort of few months, I've been thinking that maybe, you know, we should have probably not done Wish. Maybe because maybe that was just already the tail end. You know, you have a marriage, you get on really well, you have the honeymoon period, then you love each other, then it goes on, then you have children, and then you, all of a sudden one day you're not getting on, and it goes all kind of, it's a bit kind of like that. And I just think we did really great work together. And there's some great, I mean, Friday I'm in Love is just a great, it's just a great last kind of, if my bookends are Love Cats and Friday I'm in Love, I'm just really fucking totally happy with that and just thoroughly loved working with them. Weren't all easy, nothing ever is. But it was just like the overall thing was just like, oh, it's just brilliant. I'm just so proud of it. And I'm just so proud of what they've done. And just to keep it all, you know, keeping it up there.
And I don't remember who I saw in the chat. Some of the chats are coming through very quickly, but I don't know if you'd be able to answer the question, but supposedly there's a new album or a couple. Are you working with The Cure by chance? They're going to ask me why I didn't ask it, but
no. Lots of people over the last sort of few years have been going, well, what's happening with the album? I have no idea. And my only quip has been it's taking a long time to write an elegy for planet Earth.
Yeah.
If you want to, that's what I say.
No comment.
I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping it's going to be amazing. I'm sure it will be amazing because I think by now, you know, it's kind of quite difficult doing your own stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when you are the arbiter of everything and there is no real commercial pressure to release, and you don't want to release anything that you don't like. So obviously no one, you know, you might write one thing and then 3 years later just think, do you know what, I've just gone off that.
Yeah.
So it's just a really difficult gig. And, you know, obviously a lot of difficult things have happened, both in Robert's private life and all the rest of it. All I can say is the last two times I've seen The Cure, I saw him at Reading and I really didn't like Reeves. I didn't think he fitted in or anything like that. And then I saw him at Hyde Park a couple of years ago and I just thought it was the best I'd ever seen them. I just thought they all sounded fantastic. Reeves was just totally knitted into the band, and I'm sorry about this, but kind of better than Paul did and better than Perry did. I mean, he's just absolutely great. He's become a Cure member, and I just thought they were all fantastic. And I just thought it sounded brilliant. Robert sounded brilliant singing. I mean, it's just everything. I was just absolutely knocked out. Best I'd ever seen them. Now, what the hell I could just kind of like not say that, but that's what I'm saying. I just thought
at that BSD, the 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Hyde Park.
Yeah. The 40th anniversary. Yeah.
He drunk all their rider. He's not telling the full story.
Shh. Don't tell him that. Oh, I'm sure they found some rider from somewhere. I only drank all the rosé. Right.
See, that was considerate.
there's
You
plenty
drank
of
all the
wine.
rosé and you left wine for everyone else.
Do anything. No, seriously though, I just thought it was just. I just thought they just sounded brilliant. Absolutely knit together as a band, really kind of like on it, absolutely on it, and it was bakingly hot, and it was just a really.
Yeah.
I just thought they were just really great, and it was just really great to see Reeves really keyed in. And I certainly had no kind of remit to go there. I just thought he's just fucking brilliant. The whole thing was just really brilliant, and
yeah, you know, it's
real. It was real.
Carl and I went. Yeah, Carl and I went to we got tickets to that Hyde Park show, and then they announced the Meltdown, which was like a week or two earlier. And the interesting thing, like I've seen a bazillion Cure shows, like a ridiculous amount of Cure shows, and I'm going to go see more. But for me, what was interesting as somebody who's seen so many shows and so many iterations of the band and so many different venues, when I was front and center at that the Meltdown, which you would think would be like the most amazing, you know, experience as a fan, it wasn't. And I'm still not really sure why, because they sounded fine, but it might have been because the audience was kind of cold and the whole situation a little cold. I mean, the sound was fine. But yeah, I don't know. But then, you know, we cut to Hyde Park in this giant festival that was, again, like what you said, Dave, it was 1,000 degrees. And I wasn't expecting anything because I was like, all right, this is a festival thing and they're going to play the hits and it's going to be fine. But I was really happy to be with like all of my Cure friends in the community, which is like the whole reason why I started CureFanDoc. And you're right, Dave, there was something brilliant about that not only how they sounded, but the night, the people, the energy, the whole thing, you know?
Well, it's the reason why you go to gigs like that with bands like that. There was connection. It was just, I don't know. It was almost like, I can't really explain it. It was almost like it was like going to the best rehearsal of a band I've ever seen. It just sounded like 5 people on stage playing. Now there's so much shit nowadays where all you hear is fucking stems and da 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 da, and this whole kind of background, which all just sounds really kind of quite fake. And it was great, and there weren't mistakes, and it was just, they were all on point. It just had everything. It just had the atmosphere, had that sort of weird connection. 50,000 people, and there was a connection there, and it was. I don't know. It's just absolutely high point of like watching Cure live for me, and I haven't been to that many shows, I have to say, because I haven't been out near them. Well, I've either been working and I've been on the crew, or I've been kind of, well, you know, I'm not on the crew anymore, so I want to go there, you know. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say Jarvis Cocker from Pulp always, like, not always, but a lot of his shows, he'll say, we're all here together. This is the show. It's never going to happen again. Like, let's do it, because it's true. And that's what I tell a lot of people who are like, to see the Cure again, or even I see Nick Cave multiple times. I'm like, because it's a Tuesday and it's another year and it's hot out and I'm a different person and they're a different band and it's going to be a fucking different experience, you know?
But
that's
you talk
the beauty of music.
You talk about those 2 artists, and of course the song that you write, some of these songs, one of Robert's great talents is of writing these tiny moments, the tiny fulcrum moments in people's lives. This is my opinion of it. So there's people who write songs about global things and all the rest of it. Robert will write a song about a piece of food falling out of your mouth and laughing, and who hasn't done that on a date in a restaurant? And it's this tiny little kind of moment. And to get that kind of tiny moment in a big place is just sort of, it's kind of weird and strange, and that's his talent. And sometimes it absolutely works. And Nick Cave's the same kind of thing. It's I went to the Roland S. Howard tribute at the Royal Festival Hall, which is not really one of my favorite.
Oh.
And Nick came on and just played
Roland.
yeah, played that song, you know, played it on piano, and it was just absolutely, that really was a moment of connection. And it's not really even with the artist, I think.
Yeah.
It's with the artist is channeling the song, you know, the song is bigger than the artist. You know, the artist will be dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
Carry on. So the song is kind of like, as long as the song carries on for until it's forgotten or whatever. And you know, you're connecting to that kind of almost universal thing which the artist has channeled for you. Hopefully. That fucking sounds pretentious as shit, doesn't it? There we go. That's the way I think about it.
No, it's no. I mean, it's just, you know, there's music that, first of all, there's people that listen to music passively, and there's people that listen to music actively, and one is not better than the other. But some people, music doesn't speak to them the way that probably everybody who's watching this and the 4 people that are involved in this conversation, you know, on video, it's like we are all active listeners of music, and so it means that much more to us. And again, that's not a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, it is a way to transcend.
Alison H925 says Hyde Park was perfect in capitals, and it kind of was.
Yeah.
You know,
Tim did a good job as well, didn't he?
Then I've not seen it.
It's great. You should watch it. It's really good.
Oh, I mean, I love Tim. I know I love Tim. He's a funny guy.
Yeah. Question from me. What's your weirdest or favorite memory of him? Because obviously you were in the Friday video, and you're obviously around various
Cowboy.
Yeah.
Cowboy. Well, that's a tough one, really. Seeing as a couple of other kind of things have come through. No, it's the video cowboy thing. Him starting each take with a hydrogen balloon and a megaphone on a rocking horse. It's just like Tim's jokes. He's just brilliant. His jokes. Well, again, you see, it's like one of those things. I'm quite a funny guy as well. But I'm really fucking serious. And Tim's really serious too. And there's this kind of modern tendency to think that if you're a funny guy, you're not serious about your work. And I'm really totally stupidly serious about it. But I like to have fun. And one of my kind of rules of thumb is that sort of really dark bands are usually the most fun to work with, because all the dark stuff goes into the music. Then all the fun stuff goes into life. So trust me, I'm glad I didn't spend a life in pop music. Can you imagine what the vibe was like on a Pharrell Williams session doing Happy? I mean, like, not very much eating donuts and like cracking up and having jokes. I know that was done for a movie and it's a great song and all the rest of it, and I'm not criticizing Pharrell Williams. It's more like most of the pop stuff I've done. It's all been so serious, so deathly serious. You think this is a piece of shit, you know? It's like it's going to be here this year, one next year. Why are we having a bit of a laugh? But they are. It's true. They are. It's true. Pop is serious.
Carl, have you got some questions coming from the floor from all these wonderful people that are on?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of great comments coming through. Just I became a watcher just now, and I got wrapped up in this. But in the audience, like for example, just some comments. Clara Grays on Facebook says it's time for Dave's autobiography, please.
No.
No. And then Craig Hogan had asked. It was something I was thinking about earlier. Craig Hogan from Facebook had also asked, is there a piece of equipment that you identify as like being a big component of like the Cure's sound? And being that you started like, around like the top, and then you finished around Wish, and such a different sound like from one period to the other.
Yeah. Well, you don't remain the same person, do you?
Yeah.
And the equipment didn't remain the same. The desks changed. We went into SSLs. We went from not being able to recall anything to being able to recall everything, which is now kind of like instant recall and total recall. In fact, the SSLs only ever recalled to within 10% of the original mix. So even that recall was something that was sold to people. I mean, record companies loved it because they thought they could just recall something and it would all come back the same as it was. But that was a little bit of a lie. Not a little bit of a lie, and it was kind of true, but you used to have to sit there and twiddle about with it. I can also probably say that I think every single song that I ever worked on with The Cure, I've got Dimension D on the bass, all the way through from the top right through to Wish. There'd always be a Dimension D, which is a box. It's a very posh chorus box on setting 4, and I'd always put it on Simon's bass for every single song.
Any musicians that are out here that are just like, oh, I want to try to get this particular Cure sound, everyone's going to go out and try to get a Dimension D right now. And
no, it doesn't work like that.
No, it does it?
You know, because I mean, you know, Simon gets the sound he gets.
Yeah.
I mean, you could give Robert and Simon the same bass. Robert's playing all the bass on the top, for instance, and you could give them the same bass line, and it would just sound different. And if you gave that bass line to Mark King from Level 42, you'd get something else again, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. If you gave it to Jaco Pastorius, obviously he wouldn't play something without frets, with frets. Or if you gave it to Flea.
Oh yeah.
Flea.
He'd have to have a short scale, obviously. Yeah. Or it'd be a little bit bitchy there, I suppose. But anyway, yeah.
All right, right on. I've got a question from Mexico, from Van Vorderlach. He wants to know which of the Cure albums that you produced was maybe one with the biggest challenges. And it's kind of open. I'm not sure what the challenge would have been, but.
No, Disintegration.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying it was like, I mean, when you say the word challenge, it's like, you know, will you be able to run up this mountain?
Yeah.
Well, I had no idea what kind of mountain it was I was about to try and run up.
Yeah.
So, you know, in a way, challenge isn't the correct thing. But I think the one that kind of, was the most difficult for me. I mean, each one was kind of difficult. I didn't really like going to the south of France to do Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, because the studio I thought was absolutely shit. It's just the control. Really? The control room just sounded terrible. But again, I don't know if that was me out of my comfort zone. I was in a foreign country. I didn't like the control room. No, I just could not get a good sound there. And in fact, like around that period of time, most people who worked there, had a really amazing client list, but they were all tax exiling. So, you know, I had a lot of difficulty with getting any kind of. I was never happy with any of the audio component there, and I was there 12 weeks. But I don't know how much of that was just like me kind of going, well, I'm used to English studio. It was a very big control room. I didn't like the monitoring, yada, 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 you know. But, you know, maybe nowadays I'd just go, you know what? It sounds all right.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I was just panicking.
I mean, that's fascinating. That's fascinating to hear because, you know, the product is easily, I don't know, to me is, I mean, I know people, you know, like Disintegration is often cited as the ultimate Cure record, but Kiss Me is fantastic. And I always wonder about things like with, somebody brought it up earlier with Boris's drumming, but didn't he record in 3 different rooms or something, or do 2 layers and layers of recording? 2.
It's a real pain in the arse setting up the drums in a different place for each song. It's a right old pain in the arse. And Boris sort of said, look, Dirk, can we please not do that on this one? Which was lucky because we did 27 backing tracks. So that would have been a real stretch to try and think of 27 different ways of recording dush, tish, dush, tish, dush, tish. So we settled on 2, which was like kind of the end of Miraval, or should I say Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's? No, Brad Pitt's, because she sold.
It's Brad Pitt's now, yeah.
Yeah, she sold her share without letting him know. Nice work. And But the far end of the studio is a really huge studio. The far end of the studio, Yes had recorded there, and the studio manager sort of said, "Well, when John Anderson was here, he went around the whole studio looking for the ley line, where the ley lines intersected in the studio, and he said that this very place here is where the ley lines interconnected." And he insisted on singing this spot every time we put the mic here. I said, "Boris, let's put the drums here." And then, like,
Brilliant.
a funny little carve out the back, like a sort of stone room, which was off the side of the control room, which we did all the metal-y drums, like the drums on the Kiss. So we had a sort of big rock room, compressed stone room, and a nice woody room, which was where, say, Catch was done, or Just Like Heaven,
Yeah.
for the more mellow kind of side of things. And it was a big competition for flies, killing flies, because it was on top of the stables, and underneath was a whole load of kind of old horse manure, which sort of, and you couldn't keep flies out of it. And I'm afraid, rather maliciously, I used to carry a this is getting far too loose now. I used to a little glass engraving tool, and I used to sign studio windows down in the bottom right hand corner after I'd finished an album. So
You were tagging. You were like, Dave was here.
yeah, I was tagging. Yeah.
Now, wasn't I wonder if that can be segued into on the Rough Trade audio. There was a story about nicknames, and in Cure Land, don't you have a nickname that's tied to
work? And Phil Thornalley's name was Da Vinci.
Da Vinci,
which we kind of like. Basically, Phil said he thought it was because he was a painter in sound, and I don't know. My Dirk, it's either Dirk the Gay Blade, or I've got a very pointed sense of humour, and obviously a Dirk is a Scottish small blade that you keep down your sock, where when the person thinks they disarmed you, you then suddenly stab them through the heart. I don't know. You'd have to love Robert, but, and then on the Rough Trade broadcast is a story about how Flood got his nickname.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I have a question from Megan Lutz in Chicago. She asks, "Are there any innovations that you came up with while working in the studio?"
Probably.
Yeah. Well, that answers the question. It does. It was kind of a yes or no question. So, that works.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is like problem solving anyway.
Yeah.
How are you going to get from here to there? So, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, it's that's the real innovations. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, you can think you've innovated something, and then really, for instance, like ambient music. Now, Eno is usually put down as the father of ambient music, but Edgar Varese in the 30s did ambient music because he used kind of normal street sounds at the start of kind of tape recording and stuff like that. So, and then of course, back in the Stone Age, what is ambient music? It's, I don't know, innovations. It's a kind of a bit of a, I mean, you look at Dave Smith, who is the synthesizer pioneer, made the Prophet. I mean, those people are the innovators, really, in a way. Or like the Lindrum, the guy who made the Lindrum, or the guy who made it possible to put a sound onto a chip that you could then put in a Lindrum. I mean, who are the real innovators? The people who designed Logic, the people who made all the kind of.
Well, but now, now you're downsizing yourself. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
innovation. What does it? What does it really mean? I could kind of, the person who made the tape, Ray Dolby.
Yeah.
You got Dolby Atmos, and Ray Dolby's been dead like 20 years. he goes all the way back to Ampex, and multi-track recording owes its genesis really to TV, because they were the first people to use 2-inch tapes to record video on. And in fact, Head on the Door was done on an Ampex machine, which was an ex-video machine at Angel Studios, and all the edits that worked in the Ampex machine didn't bloody work in a studio. So if you really listen carefully...
Well, wait a minute. Dave, what do you mean it was a movie machine? What?
It's TV, video. The origin of video, the origin of 2-inch tape was originally as a videotape, American. And then it got used, somebody innovated the idea of a multi-track head block and put a different head block on it. So instead of it being used as a video decoding head block, it got used as a kind of audio decoding head block. I mean, I'm not big on this, and I obviously haven't done a course in it. It's just, but all I know is that the tape machine that was used to do Head on the Door, all the basic recordings at Angel Studios, I did the edits on it for, say, Blood of Christ, which had about 20 edits in it. Well, that sounds terrible, but, it was just making it tight. And then kind of like when we got to Townhouse to finish overdubbing and recording it, every time one of these bloody edits would go through the studio, it would sort of go like that. It was really upsetting and nerve-wracking to have that going around, because every time that happened, I'd sort of think, well, Christ, it's going to fly apart in a minute, and we'll be sticking the bloody thing back together again, because it just wouldn't go through the heads. It wasn't really as well designed as the Ampex machine,
Right.
Which was ancient.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like another thing that was of that time period, right? And came and went quickly, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was already on the way out. In fact, I had a kind of weird head path, a weird way of threading the tape, because probably for video you needed it to be like even more stable than I don't know. It's just not my field. I might be just talking complete horse shit. Maybe they just had a shitter machine and they told me it was a video machine and I didn't know better. I don't know.
It was a sabotage.
I suppose I must have for a long time. I mean, it's a bit more like kind of. I mean, on Disintegration, Robert didn't want to do any backing vocals, so I kind of thought, well, you do need some. It would be nice to have extra vocals, but he wouldn't sing any. So I got from John Porter, who produced the Smiths. He lent me, via a friend of mine called Roy Spong, who was the assistant on it. We went up to North London and got one of these Publiston harmonizers where you could do different harmonizers in stereo, and all the little funny backing vocals in Disintegration, the actual song, the little sevenths harmonies are just generated off of this funny harmonizer, if you know what I mean. The squeaky voices in the background.
Yeah, but there's an innovation, not like. Yeah.
Oh, innovation.
I mean, it's not. You're not building a mountain, but I mean, it's like you said, it's problem solving. It's somebody that.
Yeah.
To me, in this conversation, I'm thinking about all the different things you learned trial by fire by just being a producer in a musical time period where technology was moving quickly, but not in the same way that it is now when we've gone completely into zeros and ones. Maybe not completely.
Oh, well,
but
I don't agree with anybody that technology is moving quickly. I think it started slowing down like maybe 15 years ago, and personally, I think it's kind of reversing. I mean, albeit that's not the narrative. I know that's not the narrative. Perfectly aware what the narrative is, but for instance, like I've come to Austria, I've got a UK mobile, and now in order to kind of get maps or to receive calls or anything, I have to pay £2 a day to have a mobile. So consequently, rather than use my mobile,
this is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, no, but the point of this is that to use my mobile, I use it in the hotel like it's a landline. because I don't want to pay £2 a day to carry around a mobile to get some text about something, right? And in fact, when I get to Macedonia, which is outside of the EU, it's £5 a day. And do you know what? I'll be just using it like a landline, like I was in the 70s when I'm in the hotel with my own little handset. So, yes.
Fair enough.
Yes, so technology is advancing, but is it really advancing? Is it really advancing? What's particular advanced about that?
Interesting.
The narrative is that we're rapidly produced, like, for instance, we can do this. Well, this is what people could have done. You know, the Beatles did the first broadcast on satellite, didn't they? With All You Need Is Love. Well, that was what, 66, 65, 66. And we're kind of doing the same thing with this. We're doing, say, what people have been doing in TV for like 20 years, maybe longer. And yeah, I guess it's an advance that we're doing it, but it's not really an advance. We're doing it, and it's not costing us what it would have cost them 25 years ago. And just because it's cheaper doesn't mean to say it's advanced, does it? I mean, maybe it does.
No, I mean, no, that is definitely true. But I mean, as far as like, you know, I don't know, just when you talk about these like practical things, like, you know, working in film, for example, I shoot things now all through Zoom and remotely and this and that and the other. And I crave what I call practical shooting, when somebody's shooting like an object on the table right in front of them versus everything in the computer in zeros and ones. So I don't know what it's like to be a music engineer, but me in the conversation that we've.
But Dave has a really good point in the fact that, I mean, you know, I've been an artist, a producer, whatever, for like 15 years, and I've lived the last 15 years of evolution of technology. And we've got to a point where, you know, my first Pro Tools rig in sort of like early 2000s was like, you know, 70 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, and it was still kind of hardware. Now you rent for 30 quid a month, and the whole thing is based around one processor chip in a laptop. So basically, you as Dave said, it's regressing or it's shrinking because there's only so much you can do with that. I mean, you know, people up until quite recently, let's say 10 years ago, were still sort of had soldering irons and PCB boards, and we're kind of making hardware and, oh, well, this might sound a bit different because we've invented a new filter, without getting all geeky about it. Nowadays, everything is reduced to the size of, well, basically of a telephone or at best a laptop. And you can't really, you know, the wheel has been invented, and it's just kind of, well, you know, and the motorway is very straight and very long, and everybody's going the same way.
Apparently, according to Vicky 9876, it's the same when they visit the UK after Brexit. So if you're European and you come, or American and you come to the UK, you'll be stuck to the hotel on Wi-Fi, and then you're starting Starbucks or Costa Coffee. So anyway, we're wandering off the subject.
Just very quickly, for the game, I said virtual instruments are just reproducing all these wonderful analog synths, actually, which they are. But you can get every day of the week there'll be a new virtual synth which isn't based on a Korg or a Moog or a Roland, and it will have 6 paragraphs explaining to you why it's the most wonderful thing. You'll load it in for 30 quid. You'll press a key and it just sounds exactly like the other virtual synth that came out 2 weeks earlier. I'm not criticizing, I'm just stating a fact. And I think Dave's completely right. It's shrinking to the size of physically what everything has shrunk to, i.e. a phone or a laptop.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm going to go through some things. No, the quote from Chris Carter, this is Toby Burrell. I didn't do any work with Chris and Cozy, although I kind of knew Cozy. One of my friends is a guy called Kerith Wynne Evans, who was like a YBA, although he's now an OBA, old British artist, and he was like thick as thieves with all the early Throbbing Gristle. And I did see, out of the 6 Throbbing Gristle gigs, I did see 2 of them. One of the London Architectural Association, and the other one was in some weird place down Tottenham Court Road. So no, I didn't do anything with Chris and Cozy, because Chris Carter did some. I included a quote from him in my liner notes for DNA about the System 700. It's where I get the 35 grand from. It's from Chris Carter. Don't know what studio Depeche Mode used. I don't have any go-to reverbs and delays. That's Joe Howard. I just use Deverb basically. I'm really slaggy. Miraval. So, well, Miraval wasn't bad really. I'm sort of being negative. It was, you know, had a fantastic piano. Had a Bodendorfer like massive concert grand that Jacques Lussier had obviously put in there. Strange wiring. I don't know what the strange wiring was in the 6-string bass. Neither did Binky, the roadie, and we never changed it, and we put it all back together. And but all I know is that original 6-string bass that's on Wish and is really the Disintegration one on Lullaby, for instance, did sound much better than everybody else's. God help us if Mark King had it. Yeah, okay. I worked on Level 42, the first album. I showed Ken Scott, the guy who did 5 Years by David Bowie, how to work an SSL, and he also recorded the Beatles album. So, you know, we were just massive fans of him. And I also worked with Mark King on a band called Leisure Process. And you don't want to have an argument with him, though, because he was Southern Counties pop star. So he's a lovely bloke. I'm sorry, Carl. I'm just bossing it now.
No, that's you're knocking them out.
Well, I don't know. Mark de Leberve says, "Well, I don't know. How does it feel to have played such a huge part in so many people's lives, helping these songs to through?" I am really proud of that. One of the things I think about music is and really depressing music. It really holds your hand in times of trouble, and it does mine. And it's a lifesaver. And I don't know. It's just, it's been a gift to be able to do that. It's just really, it is a really great thing. It's probably cost me dear as well, because any kind of thing like that does impact on your own life. But yeah, I know it's good, and I know the Cure really kind of reached that point in people's lives, and they do help, and plus a whole load of other things. Because when somebody writes about all the dark aspects of life and they do it poetically, it's catharsis for you, and it's a safe way of releasing those feelings rather than yourself, which is obviously so selfish and all the rest of it, and leads to a lot of other kind of pain and further ongoing stuff. So yeah, no, I'm totally cool with that, and it's really nice that people, really nice, it's so banal to say that, but I know it does help, and it's a privilege, and that's just really schmaltzy, but there you go. Come on. Well, sorry, it's just like, I'm sorry, we also sort of
I'm laughing because I think that I don't know, a lot of Cure fans, there's no one kind of Cure fan, but a lot of people who are attracted to this kind of music are somewhat easily self-deprecating and self-loathing a little bit, and I don't know, so I just chuckle because I'm like, why are you saying that about yourself? You're not like that. But that's just,
well, what's the other option? I'm a fucking,
I guess we all could.
They all owe it to me, and it's just like, I'm a genius and I architected it all and I did it all.
Well,
I mean, that is an option.
I wanted to point out one comment from For the Game over on Twitch, who just said, you know, not only is this a great interview, but it's also funny and an informative exchange. You know, just good to see that, you know, people have been enjoying this. I didn't know how this was going to go.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you three guys, because, you know, can't have a conversation on your own, can you?
Yeah.
Well, I can, of course, because I'm a genius, and I wouldn't. I'd hate to be.
See?
I'd hate to be self-loathing by, you know, well, what the fuck have you three guys been doing on here? That's wasting my time. No way, talking when I could have been talking.
Yeah, that's what you gotta follow Sting's lead. You know what I mean? Just kidding, everybody.
There's an interesting mention of, well, Sting's mentioned in the Rough Trade discussion with Phil. And,
let's save that one.
Oh yeah, no, well, that was interesting because he was talking about what makes really great songs, and Phil's point was that, you know, really, really great pop songs are very dark subject matter wrapped in a sugar pill. Whereas I don't really think that about The Cure, but maybe their best kind of singles are that type of thing. But I think kind of Rubber's in a way not that kind of complicated. I mean, Friday in Love's just out and out love song. Bang.
Bang.
You know, just eating ice cream in bed at night. Who hasn't had that in a love affair? You know, although not ice cream, maybe something else.
So, David, you're traveling right now for work. Is that correct?
Yeah. If the tax people with the IRS ask me, I'm definitely.
Oh no! No one watching us works in.
No. I'm going to Macedonia. I have no idea why I'm going to look for Alexander's sword. That's what I say, because no one knows what happened to his sword and armor. And I was going to go and try and write a book.
Oh.
And not a book about my life, because my life, most people would be interested in the thing that's the least interesting about my life, which would be sitting in a small dark room, listening to people play either well, badly, indifferently, and then for the last 20 years mending it all on Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Or you know, it's just like, it's not an interesting environment. Some of the records are interesting, the product is interesting, but the process isn't really very interesting to me. And I fail to see how it's interesting to anybody else other than as some kind of, you know what backstage is like at gigs? There's no glamour there. There's no glamour there, is there, Aretha?
A pack of warm beer and a chaise lounge.
People don't know that, you know, they expect you to like walk backstage and there's like, you know, cherubs flying around and champagne and really there's like a tub of like lukewarm beer and awkward conversations, and maybe some people are doing blow on the side, and then somebody else is talking about something you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But yeah, it's much better to be together at a pub.
Yeah. Well, it's all the Wizard of Oz, isn't it? So anyway, and I know it's kind of, you know, I don't know. So no, I'm not writing a book about that. If I ever do write a book, if I ever manage to do it, and I don't know why Macedonia, but I'm only allowed to be in the EU 90 days, which sounds like a long time, but that basically put out Italy and Spain. This is because, you know, post Brexit we can't do Schengen. So I was looking for somewhere outside of Europe, and Macedonia just looks great. I mean, it's just fucking, I don't know. I've never been there. I'm just driving there.
Well, I definitely want to invite you back for when this book is. What?
Pardon, Arusha?
I was just saying, post Brexit, you can't do what? You can't go where?
Stay in Europe for more than 90 days.
It's really fucked up.
Oh, right.
And next year you have to get a visa.
I mean, this isn't of any relevance, but I dropped off a pair of trousers that I split down the arse at a wedding to a tailor at Vivienne Westwood in London, and the very nice man at Vivienne Westwood promised to have them mended for free and sent them back, and they've been in customs for over 10 days, and I ended up having to send a photo of me pissed at a wedding wearing the trousers to prove that I hadn't bought them because they wanted 200 quid tax on them. That's what we're
Oh
living
my
with.
God.
Yeah.
Well,
Brexit.
here's a practical example. Kiss me, kiss me, kiss me. The Cure went to the south of France to do some gigs. Orange. No, hang on. They went to do some gigs. They stayed in Nice. Then we did demos in Draguignan, in Provence, for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Then there was a break. Then we went to Miraval for 12 weeks. Then we came back and we went to Brussels for 3 weeks. And then we went to Compass Point, and then we went somewhere else. I can't really quite
That'd be
remember.
impossible now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so, and definitely some of Kiss Me, Kiss Me was influenced by a lot of French literature. How Beautiful You Are, that one.
Baudelaire.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the practical side of it. No one's going to go to Europe and kind of make a record like that. No one from Britain could go to Connie's studio like Killing Joke did to do a Killing Joke album with Connie Plank. David Bowie wouldn't have been able to go to Hansa and live in Berlin. I mean, I know that was before, but you see, like, passports only came in 1922 after the First World War. And before that, if you had the money, you just went to somewhere. You didn't even have to show a document. So kind of historic we're looking at is like even more clamping down on people moving about everywhere, because obviously part of the thing with the being able to track everybody, I know this is all a bit Big Brother and going a bit AWOL, but well, what is exactly going on? What is going on is loss of freedom in some kind of primal bureaucratic way.
Yeah.
And trying to think of something else that was probably relevant to that. Just before, let's wrap this up, because Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, it was definitely suggested, muted, that Robert work with Bob Clearmountain. So after the success of In Between Days, it was obviously like once you've proved that you could do something. So the first thing that everybody thinks about is how can we get somebody different, you know, to kind of do something. So Robert and Bob Clearmountain had this telephone conversation, and Bob said, "Well, I like to work from a kind of about 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening, and then I like to go and have dinner, and then I like to come back the following day." And Robert said, "When will we ever meet?" I just
no. Look, we're coming up
the studio at 6 when Bob was going off to have his kind of go and have dinner. He'd be going when came in the studio and said, "Well, what did Bob Smith do last night?" And then Robert would come in and go, "What did Bob Clearmountain? Well, what did Bob Clearmountain do last night? What's the half-wit done today?" You know, that sort of thing. Just made me laugh. Like, you know, basic compatibility of people. Well, that wasn't going to work, was it?
Right.
Well, look, we're coming up on 2 hours, so shall we wrap it up? I know that we could go on all night, but obviously, you know, we can't. Is that cool? Or do you, Dave? Yeah.
Yeah, I've run out. Well, look, I need a fag.
Yeah, well, look, a big thank you to everybody who's on here. There's been so many messages. And Carl, do we get a chance to kind of look through this again? Is it being recorded, or is it a one-off?
Yes. So basically, once we end the stream, it's saved, unless tomorrow when you guys wake up, you go, "Hey, you know what? Take it down." I can take it down, but it's up on all platforms to rewatch if you guys want. But definitely want to. You know, redirect everyone to one of the reasons we're here is the YouTube video.
Okay, well, I mean, Dave will probably agree on the YouTube video. I mean, we only had like 25 minutes, and obviously it was great to have Phil Thornley with us. But this has been much more in depth and much more off the cuff, and I think a lot more fun, because obviously we were getting out in the middle of the afternoon at Rough Trade in front of a kind of hostile audience. They were very nice. I mean, yeah. No, but what I mean is we didn't know what we were walking into. It was just.
I know what they were. They'd turned hostile, Andy. Me and Phil were in that stage, giving them.
And anyway, Carl, you've got the link to it, so you can put that up across you and Arusha's socials. And again, thank you to everybody, and a big thank you to Dave, as always, and thank you to Carl and Arusha. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
And,
thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. We're obviously celebrating the release of the DNA of DMA, historic snapshot album. It's available to buy on vinyl still. There's a few copies left, and obviously you can go stream it. So have fun with that. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for your time. Cheers, everyone. Good night. Watch the video. The link is in the comment section.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks. Ciao. Bye.